Hello and welcome to my patch 12.11 recap video where we look back at the last patch, the most common matchups that occurred, champion matchups that is, in a given role, within a vacuum obviously, and just kind of look at how the meta was, what were the win rates when it happened more than 10 times and things of that nature. Like I said though, it is in a vacuum, so that doesn't take into account outright player gap, skill gap, jungle proximity, team gap, you know, ruins, items, all of it. Even, any of that. It's not a factor. That obviously I am being blind to those things. That's why I say this is in a vacuum. And I only include champion matchups that happen 10 times or more. Now, with top lane, we had 27 different champions picked on 12-11 in the 4 major regions. Gwen versus Gnar was the most common matchup, happening 19 times. Gwen coming out ahead 53% of the time, which I think was 10-9, which is pretty much coin flip. Gangplank versus Gnar, also pretty much coin flip, happening 15 times, 53% of the time, I think 8-7. Kale versus GP happened 10 times. Kale coming out ahead 6-4. So all of these matchups very close, just clearly shows that we knew Gnar was like first pick or ban, especially in the East with the LCK and LPL. Not so much the West. The West was more Gangplank oriented and various other champions being picked. So, that's kind of the way the top lane looked. Jungle, I don't know why I wrote 26. I'm pretty sure it happened 29 times. But Wukong versus Viego happened very often. 22 champions picked. Viego coming out ahead 59% of the time. Viego was very dominant on this patch across all of his matchups. Literally, the only matchups that happened more than 10 times happened against Viego. Whether it was Wukong, Lee Sin, Xin Zhao, Trundle, they all lost to Viego. If you left Viego up, you were giving yourself a below 50-50 chance of winning. That's like in the end, that's what it was. 59-57 against Xin Zhao, 64%. But what was interesting was we saw the Vi and Poppy picked a total of 8 times between the two against Viego, going 7-1. So obviously, like I said, this is within a vacuum, and when we look at champion matchups under 10, I really don't give it a lot of credence. But the thing is, these picks worked in their limited sample size, and it's kind of a thing that these teams probably should look at going into 12-12. If people are picking Viego, maybe Vi or Poppy is something to look at as a counter. Trundle was a counter on 12-10, was not a counter on 12-11. I mean, obviously 6-5, so I guess really coin flip. When you get to higher amounts, maybe the win rate is more noticeably higher. But Viego is just outright dominant on this patch. In mid, we had one matchup occur more than 10 times. Sorry, I keep looking down to make sure I'm on the screen. So the only mid lane matchup that happened more than 10 times was Lissandra versus Ahri. Ahri was most commonly picked. We saw a lot of Corki Azir, a lot of various control mage mids. 24 champions picked. But Lissandra, Ahri was the only one that happened 10 times or more, happened 14 times. Lissandra coming out ahead 57% of the time. Lissandra has been the Ahri counter throughout this whole time. Since MSI, it has continued to be the counter. If teams ban Lissandra, that usually means they want to pick Ahri. And then some teams will be like, well, we're fine with the Ahri, we'll go with Azir, Corki, like you see here. There are other champions as well. But we don't go over those win rates because, like I said, it's got to be double digits. It's my bare minimum sample size that I'm willing to really, add to the board, I guess. Sylas was picked against Ahri a good amount as well, I believe. It was like pick your poison against Ahri, and Ahri has some champions that can clearly beat it, hence the Lissandra. It's not like the Viego, where the Viego is being picked, and it is winning against everything. Bot lane, 22 champions picked. I will say, because I thought about this before 12-12, but I can't go through all the games of 12-11 in a amount of time that makes sense to me. How do I put this? So the Senna bot lanes, I did not treat Senna as an AD carry if the Senna was on the support player. I did not swap them. So in doing so, I would probably want to say that Senna, I imagine, played somebody 10 times. I think it played Ezreal 9 times, which is why I'm saying it probably played it 10 times. I mean, one more time. We saw some teams go with the support playing Senna and the AD carry playing the TK or whatever, you know. So the three bot lane matchups I have here: Jinx versus Ahri and Twitch versus Ahri, both struggling against Ahri. That is not a surprise. A lot of, casters have said it, and all of us know Ahri as first pick or ban, along with Viego. Ahri 63% win rate against Jinx, 54% win rate against Twitch. So Twitch and 13, that's probably 7-6. So that's close. That's coin flip. Where the Jinx one at 65% is actually pretty big. Like, if you were picking Jinx into Ahri, you were inting. 35% is not very good. I want to say Lucian. Lucian was getting banned, but I think Lucian was the only champion with above a 50-50 win rate, or 50-50 or better against Ahri, and it only was in like 4 matchups. So really, what does that say? But Lucian was like highly picked in some iterations of patch 12.11 and some team comps, so it makes sense. But a lot of people thought, oh well, we'll ban Twitch, we'll pick Jinx in his area, and that just didn't work. Aphelios versus Jinx is back. The handshake is back, and it is well. 12 times it's occurred, and it's already happened on 12-12. Jinx winning 58% of the time. That was normal, I think, during spring. Towards the end, Jinx had the edge over Aphelios. It's no surprise that continues. I'm kind of bored of the matchup. I like the fact that Twitch is now in it. That's something we haven't seen for a long time, this commonly used. I will say, though, I will acknowledge that Aphelios Jinx kind of keeps the Yuumi out, which is nice. But I think it's only a matter of time before Leona becomes a big pick again. Support, 28 different supports picked. Yes, 28, which is what I'm saying too with the Senna bot lanes. We had a lot of different iterations, a lot of different things down there. Now, with the most common was at 15, Braum versus Nautilus. Nautilus was the most commonly picked bot laner. It was like, okay, we'll leave Nautilus up. We're going to pick Nautilus in the first rotation. And Braum actually had the edge on it. Actually, Braum, Rakan, and Renata all had an edge on Nautilus. So teams are picking Nautilus, but really Nautilus is not winning the matchup. More often than not, he's losing. Braum 60%, Rakan 55%, Renata 60%. So it's 6-4 for Renata over Nautilus, 6-5 Rakan over Nautilus, and 9-6, I believe, is 60-40 for Braum versus Nautilus, which is sizable. We did see Braum being picked into quite often. And then Rakan versus TK. Rakan was a counter to TK, and that was a draw, 50-50 throughout the patch. It's an interesting patch to say the least. This is different. I've been doing this since spring, throughout spring, and top lane, this is normal. Usually you have your key picks and things into it. But I will say, with jungle and mid, it hasn't been like this before. Usually, like, oh, well then, Viego gets banned, so people are playing Lee Sin versus Wukong, or Trundle versus Lee Sin, or Xin Zhao versus Wukong. But that didn't happen more than 10 times. It was literally, leave Viego up, pick what you want into Viego, and lose. And it was just, it's really weird, honestly, when comparing it to the past. And the same thing with mid, really. Ahri being picked all the time and things being picked into it. We didn't really see a secondary meta in mid. It was like, okay, Ahri is either going to be picked or not picked at all. Or, to say, like, picked or let through. Because it obviously wasn't banned extremely often because it came up so commonly. But when you get to the solo lanes, people pick certain things, and you know, I mean, we saw a few LPL teams willing to play tanks mid. We saw Sion, Ornn, Renekton. So that sort of stuff has been rearing its ugly head. And in 12-13, Renekton gets a buff. So who knows? Maybe the Crocodile will be back. But that's it for my patch 12.11 video. Comment down below with your opinions of your own on how this patch looked to you. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you stay tuned later today for my sneak peek and possibly other videos today or tomorrow.